Hi, my name is Valeria Enciso, and I am defending the Chrysoperla rufilabris, which is commonly known as the green lacewing.
Hi, I'm Rrita Vraniqi, and I'll be debating the honeybee side, which is scientifically known as the Apis mellifera. Today, our debate topic will be which insect is more beneficial between the green lacewing and the honeybee.
So, a little biology about the lacewing is that they are tiny whenever they are emerging from the egg, but they grow until about 3/8 of an inch long. As they grow to an adult, the adult lacewing lays their eggs on foliage, which is an egg attached to the top of a hair-like filament, and after a few days, the eggs hatch into tiny predatory larvae. This is where they're most commonly examined and known in the field, and physically, they have long antennae and bright golden eyes. They have large, transparent green wings and a delicate body that you can actually see here on the screen. Depending on climatic conditions, the adult will live for about 6 to 8 weeks, and the two species of green lacewings overwinter as adults, usually in leaf litter and at the edge of fields, and during the spring and summer. Females usually lay several hundred small eggs in leaves and twigs, and the larvae emerge in about 3 to 6 days. As far as their behavior, they're known as aphid lions, since they attack aphids in seizing them with large sucking jaws that inject paralyzing venom. The impacts on our humanity is that they actually help control many different types of pests. Each lacewing will devour about 200 pests a week, and including their developmental period. And they're known as predators for many different types of vegetation, which is what they're most beneficial for us. And that is a brief history and impacts in society about the lacewing.
Okay, a little bit of the biology for the honeybee. While each colony of honeybees is different, the amount of bees in each one range from about 10,000 to hundreds of thousands. A hive consists of the queen bees, the worker bees, and the drones, each having their own responsibility. The queen is responsible for producing and laying the thousands of eggs during her 2 to 3 years of life. When the eggs hatch into larvae, they are then fed honey, royal jelly, and other plant liquids by the worker bees. When the bees are born, they don't have legs, eyes, or antennae or wings, but they will slowly develop them as they eat and grow into adults. A little bit about their history. Because of the different types of honeybees, each one has a different cycle of life. The life cycle of a honeybee is perneral. A drone's only job is to mate with the queen, causing them to quickly die after that. Contrastingly, the working bees can live for up to 6 weeks, while the queen can survive up to 5 years. The developmental stages are different for each type of bee as well. It takes about 16 days to become fully grown for the queens, 24 days to become fully grown for the drones, and 21 days for the worker bees. Honeybees are extremely organized and are known as social insects because they live in such large colonies. Honeybees only sting in a form of defense when they feel threatened or feel as if their hive is being threatened. The impacts on human society is that not only do bees provide humans with things like honey, they provide a substantial amount of pollination to our fruit and vegetable crops. They pollinate food we grow and feed our animals They pollinate the food we grow that we end up feeding to our animals, which we then produce into dairy and meat products. And not only do they pollinate our crops, but things like cotton and sunflowers, which will then be produced into oils and fibers. And honeybees are credited for pollinating about 80% of our crops.
For the first rebuttal, I'm going to be asking that, but with today's technology, I was wondering if there was any other way to grow crops without bees, as well as the robo bees. That was going to be my first question.
Okay, yes, that is such a good question. With today's technology, it seems like everything is possible. However, without bees, we wouldn't have the natural process of growing our crops from their pollination. Robo bees would be extremely expensive to maintain and would not be as reliable as honeybees. It is a honeybee's job to pollinate our crops, and if we start relying on robo bees to pollinate our crops, it will not be as natural as having an actual insect do it. Also, it would take buying a substantial amount of robo bees in order to keep up with the growing population of humans and the high demand for food. If we rely on robo bees, a lot of technical difficulties can go along with that, and because they are essentially robots, little mini bee robots, there would just be a lot of problems that can happen with those rather than just depending on the bees to do the natural thing, which is to pollinate our crop. Okay, and for the second rebuttal, I was going to ask that the green lacewing devours other pests, but that can also be done with pesticides. How is the green lacewing important to our human vegetation?
The green lacewing is actually linked with so many crops because of that predation that they actually have. They are recorded as some of the most important aphid predators as far as potatoes, pepper, tomatoes, eggplants, corn, peas, and cotton. There have been many studies, and for one of the studies actually here in Texas, it was found that in the infestation by 96%, the lacewing actually helped reduce those diseases that happen. Additionally, they help with the pesticide loss. It's also just more economically viable. These will last longer and they have cycles of life, unlike just regular pesticides, which kind of are a one time use. And so that's why they are more important to our vegetation because they're more organic and will be a lot less harmful. So for the second rebuttal, my question is that you say the honeybee is such a positive impact on the human society, but what about the people who are highly allergic to them? And how are they harmful to them? And what do you feel like can be done about that?
Okay, that is also another great question to ask. There are many people who are very highly allergic to the honeybees, but that does not make them allergic to the pollination that the bees are initially responsible for. Pollination is just the transfer of pollen from crops, from flowers and crops to other crops. Bees pollinate an enormous amount of crops from things like apples to cranberries to broccoli and even things like almonds. Therefore, if you're allergic to bees, you will not be affected by the bee itself because they are not directly touching you or the food you're eating, but they are rather just allowing the fruits and vegetables that you are going to eat be pollinated. So if you are allergic to bees, they're not going to say if you're eating like a broccoli or an apple, the bees aren't going to directly touch the crops. They're just there for the pollination to allow those crops to grow.
So for the closing statement, we would suffer exponentially than without the honeybee. The green lacewing also has a need for pest control, and there's so many different crops that we produce with it that would just be so harmed without it due to the economic loss that we would have as well. And as previously stated, I believe that the allergies and deaths linked with honeybees are unlike the green lacewing. And so overall, that's truly why I believe that they are more beneficial to us and they would affect our human society a lot more than without the loss of honeybees.
Okay, yeah, in conclusion, while I believe the green lacewings have a huge impact on our human society because they're able to kind of serve as pest control but be more of a natural source of it. I believe that honeybees are far more beneficial. Honeybees are actually known as nature's greatest pollinating machine when it comes to agriculture. And without them, plants would not be able to produce and plants would not be fertilized enough for our necessary food yields. Like I said earlier, honeybees are credited for 80% of all crop pollination. And without them, we would see a huge decline in the fruits and vegetables that we eat every day because if we didn't have the honeybees, the food, whether it's fruits, vegetables, anything that needs pollination, there won't be any of it because the bees are known to pollinate those. So without them, I think that all the food we eat today won't be pollinated. And we just want to thank all of these websites and resources for allowing us to be able to speak about our insects and why we think they're more beneficial.